and if we could all please rise, the Honorable Rob Donovic, council member, is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Donovic. Good evening, and welcome to the 1,930th regular meeting of the Livonia City Council. This is a voting minute, and minutes of this meeting will be approved at the next regular meeting scheduled to be held on Monday, October 18th, 2021. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Donovic,
Aye. Present.
Councilmember Jolly,
Present.
Councilmember Toy,
Here.
Vice President Barr,
Here.
Councilmember White,
Present.
Councilmember McCullough,
Here.
President McIntyre.
Here, and we have all 7 members of the council with us this evening. At this time, we go to presentation of the minutes for the 1,929th regular meeting of the City Council held on September 20th, 2021.
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second that.
Support from Councilmember Jolly. Do we have any amendments or corrections to the meeting minutes? Anyone from the audience? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll call vote on approval of the minutes without any amendments?
Councilmember Donovic,
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly,
Aye.
Councilmember Toy,
Aye.
Vice President Barr,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough,
Aye.
President McIntyre.
Aye, and the minutes are approved unanimously. At this time, I go to the council for any personal announcements, tributes, or recognitions, and I'll begin on my right with Councilmember Donovic.
Thank you, Madam President. First off, on Saturday, September 25th, the Greenleaf Commission hosted an electric vehicle car show for National Drive Electric Week. There was roughly 30 electric vehicles that showed up. I was actually able to drive one of my favorite cars, a Tesla Model S. I did not do any burnouts, I promise, if any police officers are watching. The event was supported by the City of Livonia, Plug In America, Consumers Energy, DTE Energy, and Schoolcraft College. Congresswoman Haley Stevens was there, along with one of my colleagues, Laura Toy. It was a rainy day, but there were still, I think, maybe at least 40 to 45 people there when I was there, so it was pretty impressive. It was nice to see the kind of different cars, different electric vehicles coming together, and people just kind of hanging out and talking about the future of electronic vehicles. So hats off to the Greenleaf Commission, Jim Berringhouse, and the rest of that commission. Also, I'd like to offer an item for report and recommendation to the administration. We recently approved Hero Pay for our city employees, and prior to that, our first responders. However, 3 very important groups of people may not have been included: reserve police officers, transit drivers, and CERT volunteers. They all had a very large part to play in the city's response to COVID, so I think it's only fair for them to receive a bonus for Hero Pay as well. So I'd like to refer this item to the administration for report and recommendation, please. Thank you, Madam President.
We have support?
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none? Anyone from the audience? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on Councilmember Donovic's resolution to refer the issue of Hero Pay for reserve officers, transit drivers, and CERT volunteers to the administration?
Councilmember Donovic,
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly,
Aye.
Councilmember Toy,
Aye.
Vice President Barr,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough,
Aye.
President McIntyre.
Aye, and the motion carries, so we've referred that to the administration. Councilmember Toy.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I have some sad news. Those of you that knew the Myers family, grew up in Livonia, went to Bentley, of course, you know, one of our best high schools in Livonia. Not to be confused with the rec center. But anyhow, I have to report, we had a reunion about 2 weeks ago, and one of our colleagues, or classmates, I should say, Gary Meyer, has passed away, and his funeral will be tomorrow. Very sad. The family grew up in Livonia, many children, and they still reside here as well, many of them. So deepest sympathy to the Meyer family, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and we're sorry to hear that sad news, Councilmember Toy. Anyone else? Vice President Barr.
Madam President, thank you. Two items. One of them is, last week, we've talked different times up here about the Green Mead Master Plan effort that's going on. Last week, we had what I would characterize as a very productive meeting, talking about some of our next steps. But one of the things that we talked about is just the low numbers of people that have engaged with the greenmead365.com website. So I just want to publicly encourage again our residents to go to greenmead365.com and just follow the prompts there. We want to get your input as to what the future of Green Mead looks like. Our meeting last week was talking about some very specific next steps we'll be doing in order to get this feedback. But in the meantime, that avenue is out there, and I want to encourage people to look at that. The second thing, maybe on a less positive note, but for those that haven't heard, the Michigan Redistricting Commission, which was created with the vote, what was that, about 3 years ago, I think, when we changed with a Michigan ballot measure how we were going to draw up congressional districts. And they've put out their maps as to where they stand currently for what those congressional districts are going to look like. And this is something that I think is incredibly important for all Livonians to be aware of, regardless of what your political party is, regardless of what your view was of that move. Livonia is carved into 5 separate congressional districts. They've taken this city that, in my recollection, has always been predominantly whole with one congressional district, both at the federal and the state level. There's been times, and including now, that there's a sliver of it that's somewhere else, but for the most part, we've kept the city whole. And having the city divided into 5 sections, and a piece going with Northville, and a piece going with Westland, and a piece going with Southfield, et cetera, just regardless of where you stand politically, just really is going to hamper our ability to get representation at Lansing and in Washington. And so I just think it's really important for residents to be aware of this and to make your voices heard. And rather than read off the website, which is a little bit complex, what I just did is, if you just Google Michigan Redistricting Commission, the first thing that comes up is their website, and there's a forum there for public comment. I just hope Livonians are heard loud and clear that this is not going to be acceptable. This is not good for any of us. So I want to make people aware of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice President Barr. Councilmember McCullough.
Thank you, Madam President. So this Sunday, the Livonia All-Stars, which is our kind of our celebrity hockey team, is going to be facing off against the Detroit Red Wings alumni, and all the proceeds will benefit the Livonia kids and families. Some of the high-level names, we finally got the roster, and Mickey Redmond, Darren McCarty, Johnny Ogrodnik, and Eddie Mayo. And just to kind of give a little bit of a look, these are our incredible unis. So if you guys want to see us probably lose bad, but still support a good cause, tickets are available right now at the Rec Center, the UPS store, Cardwell Florist, and they're also online. So we have it on Eventbrite. I think Coach Jim Jolly is going to be behind the bench, so we're hoping that he can lead us to victory, but I think per the contract, we're not supposed to win, and I don't think we have a shot. So if you want to help Livonia kids and families and have a fun time, please, we'll see you Sunday at Eddie Edgar Ice Arena at 1 o'clock.
Super. Thank you, Councilmember McCullough. Vice President Barr.
Councilman McCullough, I was just wondering if Councilman or Coach Jolly's career record is going to be published in the program for the game.
We're gonna we'll see. I'll leave that up to him.
I currently have no record as a coach, so
It's a big
that
game.
I'm happy to share.
All right, are there any other questions or comments regarding the Sunday's hockey game? All right, well, we wish you all good luck, and we hope to see everyone from Livonia there. All right, so at this time, anyone else? At this time,
Oh, I have to announce these, the retirees,
Yes,
if you
please-
want that, Madam
please do.
Chair. Sorry, I don't quite know where to do that, but if this is appropriate, I will give the 5 retirees from September of this year. Barbara Fugate retired on 9/28 of this year. She was from the 16th District Court. She was a court reporter for 33 years of service to our city. Also, number 2 is Judith Jank, retired on 9/12 of this year from the 16th District Court as well, as a violations clerk 3 with 16 years of service. And we congratulate all these folks as well as I'm reading them through. The third one is Scott Kurfroth. He is retired on 9/4/21 from the inspection department as a building inspector with 13 years of service. Congratulations again to him as well. Number 4, Lawrence Mosher, retired on 9/25 of this year from the fire department as fire captain with 25 years of experience. He will be missed as well. 5, and the last one is Gerald Randall. He retired on 9/30, just a short few days ago. Lucky dog. From DPW as a building mechanic 1 after 14 years of service to the city of Livonia. Thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations to all these fine people.
Thank you, Councilmember Toy, and congratulations. And I know the entire council wishes all these wonderful people who have served the city so well a wonderful, healthy, and long retirement. Councilmember Jolly.
Thank you, Madam President. So congratulations to all the retirees. The first two there, Barb Fugate and Judy Jenke, I feel that I owe to give them a special thank you for how they've helped me personally. Barb Fugate was my court recorder when I was the magistrate of the 16th District Court. She started working at the court when I was 6 years old. So when I got out of law school and I was the magistrate, she had to re-educate me in regards to how the court worked and make me forget everything I learned in law school. So she did a great job of doing that. And Judy Jenke, for a long time, was a deputy civil clerk at the court and really helped me to understand the Michigan rules of civil procedure and the process of the court in a way that I would not have otherwise. So I'd like to thank both of those ladies for their contributions to the city, the court, and me personally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Jolly, and clearly those individuals did a great job in training you and mentoring you and coaching you and helping you be an outstanding magistrate. So, and we wish them well. Councilmember Toy.
Madam Chair, if you're not, and I know you probably want to chime in on this as well, October is Breast Cancer Month, and it's not only for females, but it's also for males, and it's very important that people get checked in general, and that's what all of our pink ribbons are for tonight. You know, I think we've all had somebody that have had it, and it's touched our lives, and I know in my family, there were about 3, and 1 pending at the moment. So we're saying our prayers, and we're hoping that, you know, it passes us by. But please, everybody get checked, including our males as well. It's a very important thing. Right, Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Toy. And I remarked on this, I think, last year. It was, it'll be 2 years ago on Halloween that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was extremely lucky because it was found on a mammogram, and it was discovered extremely early. And as somebody said to me, you got the best, worst news, and that's the way I looked at it. And I was extremely lucky because I had access to outstanding health care and great doctors and treatment, and I was able to arrange my life to support my treatment, and I had a lot of support from the people around me. Mammograms are critical, as Councilmember Toy mentioned. The disease also does affect men, and it's a good thing to talk to your doctor about and be aware of the symptoms. If you're a woman over 40, if you know a woman over 40, make sure that she gets her annual mammogram. And I'm going to work with the city communication department and make sure that we get some things up on our website about where low-cost or free mammograms can be obtained if you know someone who's not able to obtain one due to insurance issues or cost issues. So thank you for bringing that up, Councilmember Toy, and thank you for the ribbons to get everyone a reminder and put that in our minds. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other announcements? All right, I think we're ready then to move on. At this time, I have the pleasure and privilege of introducing our city department heads. Starting on my left is David Lear, our Assistant City Engineer, sitting in for David Lear is an outstanding Assistant Civil Engineer and Assistant Director of Engineering, sitting in for our equally outstanding Director of Engineering, Mr. Todd Zielinski, to Next is Mark Taramina, our outstanding Director of Planning and Economic Development. Next to Mark is Sarah Kasprowicz, our outstanding Manager of the Council Office and Council Business. What did I say?
No, nothing.
Did I misspeak?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No.
When everyone starts whispering and looking at me, I'm always thinking I've made a mistake, which happens quite often. To my right is our city clerk, Susan Nash. Continuing on my right is LaShawn Thomas, our Director of Governmental Affairs. And finally, on the end is Paul Bernier, our city attorney. And I don't think we have any other department heads with us this evening, but these are the folks that have to be here every single meeting we have with us. They work behind the scenes all week doing their day jobs, and then they're here in the evenings during council meetings to help the meetings go well and provide support subject matter. So. And one other thing I wanted to mention is that I'm very proud that the Livonia Engineering Department not only is our Director of Engineering an outstanding civil engineer, our Assistant Director is also an outstanding civil engineer with certifications, and that's David Lear. So that's it. And at this time, we go to audience communication. We set aside 30 minutes at the beginning of every meeting for anyone who would like to communicate with the council on any item not on this evening's agenda. It's an opportunity to do so. You're given 3 minutes. Our parliamentarian, the Honorable Kathy White, keeps track of the time, and she will give you a signal when you have 30 seconds left. If you know ahead of time that you need more than 3 minutes, you can ask us at the beginning before you start speaking for an extension of 30 seconds or a minute, and we can consider that. And we ask that comments be relevant to the city business or life in the city, and that people refrain from any inappropriate remarks or language or personal attacks. But other than that, we love to hear from our residents and our citizens and anyone who wants to talk to us. So with that, I will ask the first person, whoever would like to speak to us, to please come to the podium. I will come first. All right, and we ask for your name and address and for you to sign in. So if we have follow-up, if there are
I
follow-up.
signed back there. Should I sign here as well?
Sarah, that's a very good question. I've never been asked that. Believe it or not. Do we need people to sign in both places?
No.
Only if you want to sign in here, then we know that, to follow up with you, if something comes up in your comments that we need to follow up with you on.
Okay.
So it's
done.
up to you.
Done. Good evening. My name is Matthew Bricker. I live at 14819 Ingram Street. If you're familiar with Bentley, that's 4 houses from home plate. I have owned this home for 14 years. My family's owned property in Livonia for 62 years. I'm here this evening. Let me first, if I can request an additional 5 minutes so that the other homeowners can also speak.
They'll each get 3 minutes.
They'll each get 3. Okay, so we are running. Got it. Okay. We're here this evening to make the council and the community witness to an illegal Airbnb that's operating on our street. The low-hanging fruit of the gravity of this situation became clear to us on the evening of September 18th. Beautiful evening. I had the windows open, heard some very obnoxious music outside. I opened the window to the fleet of 20 cars out there in the street. Curious, I walked outside. Now, these weren't cars like we see in our neighborhood every day. These are cars like you might see maybe on MTV. Use your imagination. The B&B a couple doors down the street, I observed people using drugs on the porch. We watched people enter the house from vehicles that were so intoxicated they needed help to get out of their cars. In the course of the evening, there were 4 calls that were made to Livonia PD, to the service desk. No response was made. The communication was made, but an officer was not sent. I did indicate also as well, there was a woman that was brought out on the porch who in 20 years of hospitality, in my opinion, had been drugged. They were trying to get the woman to vomit, if you will. When they couldn't, 2 men came out, pulled her back in the house. That's when I pulled the plug and I called. These Airbnbs, we're all kind of familiar with them. They're a little bit new. They pop up in business districts. They pop up in college towns. They're for travelers, intrepid students, whatever they are. There's a reason these are being built or being purchased and used in the suburbs. And we've come to find through our discovery process, the owner, who is in Dearborn collecting money, profiteering off of the tranquility of the neighborhood that we built. That's something we're very, very upset with. But again, the gravity of what these can bring occurred on that evening. If you go online, which anybody can, and look up this particular residence, the residence, for the record, is 14847 Ingram Street, is advertised as a party house, which can accommodate up to 25 people. And if you choose to party, please keep the noise inside, because there are noise ordinances in Livonia. We as homeowners think this is incredibly unacceptable. As an unofficial night watch.
You have 30 seconds left.
Thank you. As a night watch person, I observed fornication in cars, I observed drug use. The noise went on until 4 in the morning. Another resident who's 87 years old that couldn't be here tonight was kept up till 4 o'clock. So I'm gonna step aside. I think I've kind of made my point a little bit. We were encouraged to come by Mr. Neville in the law department, and Dan in inspection is also aware as well. We've made several reports. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Vicki Johnson, 32209 Jameson Court, right behind 14847 Ingram. I called the police 2 times that night that he was talking about, and no response. And it's quite upsetting when you have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter who can't sleep because of all of the racket and the swearing, and give me another shot, and people falling all over the place, and just the noise was amplified because there's a 3-season room that faces my house and the back of my house, and I really didn't appreciate all the noise. And I brought it up at the corn roast with a couple of you guys, and I told you I'd be here. So I just want to stress what my fellow neighbor said, and that we can't take it. And we know through Mr. Neville, I'm very appreciative with his follow-through, and Dan from Ordinance Department, that they addressed the situation. They placed stickers that were immediately removed, and the owners said they could do what the hell they want to, and it's their house. And we didn't appreciate that, and they practically attacked one of our other neighbors. And just want you to know that we really didn't appreciate that. And we're looking forward to a more settled tenant in that house, however that comes about. But it's gotta be more than these people walking around our neighborhood at 4 in the morning. That's too scary. 48 years in that house, and this has never happened before. And I'm going if it happens again.
Thank you for your comments and your time. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Julie Hunt. I live directly across the street. I literally have probably 100.
Could you give us your address or at least your street?
14846 Ingram. This is
Ingram.
directly
You're also
across
on
the
Ingram.
street from
Thank
this
you.
house. I probably have literally 100 photos on my phone of the unbelievable amount of cars. And I'm not talking on the one night that was the worst. That literally went on for like 3 weeks. My husband went to go to work at 4:30 in the morning because he starts at 5, and one of the people from the house was like glaring in the windows of the cars around, and he scared him back into the house. Like, this is not appropriate for somebody to think that they can buy a house and run a business in the middle of a city street. I understand there's the aspect of having a rental or something like that, and I don't think any of us are for sure, because every time we would call to City Hall or the police or whatever, we kind of get different stories as to what's allowed and what's not allowed and who's got to handle it, and like, we don't really know all the guidelines of it. But again, how do you live in a different city, purchase a house, and make it be a business in the middle of a city block? Because that just doesn't seem appropriate. And these people were not there for the nice, peaceful tranquility. These people were there to not get in trouble at their own house.
Right, a party house. I think,
Okay?
as you described it.
And again, we did call the police, and again, there really wasn't a response.
Okay.
And that really bothers me, since they're like a minute and a half away.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on the same issue?
Good evening. I'm Phil Seibert. I'm here with my wife, Pat Seibert.
I'm at the address of 14835, directly next door to the home in question. These people bought their home last October, maybe November of last year. That home was vacant, unoccupied until August of this year. It wasn't occupied, but the owners became more visible this August. I helped with their lawn. I didn't really know the people. I was just trying to keep it under control a little bit. But when they started showing up, they indicated this is their home, they can do what they want with it. Then it came to light that they have this Airbnb. Believe me, folks, if you had an Airbnb and you didn't know it, and it came next to your home, you would understand exactly why we're here, because it was not appropriate, and it's got us all thinking. I mean, my wife and I have been here 43 years in the city. We love Livonia. And as soon as this developed, he's got this Airbnb, we're talking about moving. And that is not settling at all, not at all. But these people have an attitude that they own the home, they can do what they want. But we need help from the council, we need help from the legal department to look into these people. They've been given notices. You cannot run an Airbnb. You have to stop doing what you're doing. They take the notice down when it says you're not supposed to be taking these down. These people don't understand. And we need help from the council and from the legal department to look into this, and they've been notified. So they're on record. They've even come by the city legal area, and they see that things are being taken off the doors that shouldn't be taken off. So we just are encouraging you people to help us, because we're not happy, and we're kind of running up against a wall here as to what to do, and we don't want to leave. This is our home. We don't want to leave. But that's all I have to say, and I thank you.
Thank you. We don't want you to leave. Is there, I know there's someone else here for audience communication. Is it on this subject or a different subject? Okay. So I know the Vice President, I'm sorry.
I'd like to address it.
Vice President Barr's, I'm going to recognize Vice President Barr in just a moment. But I do, we have, as I indicated, Mrs. LaShawn Thomas here tonight. She's the Director of Governmental Affairs, and one of the things she does, one of the many things she does, is she's a liaison back to the mayor's office. And all the city departments work under the authority of the mayor, so I'm sure one of the things that we'll be looking into is understanding what happened with the police that night. So we will be looking into that, and I think Vice President Barr has some comments, and I think some other council members may wish to address your comments as well. Vice President Barr?
Thank you, Madam President. I won't repeat what Council President McIntyre just said, but just to add on that, I'll just touch a little bit on the legal side of this, because another property in Livonia, fortunately not as nearly as bad of a situation as what you're dealing with, but another property in Livonia that was related to short-term rentals, been talking quite a bit with the homeowner there over the last few weeks, and I don't know exactly, but my guess is I've got 8 to 10 hours of time spent into looking into this over the last week and a half, including a really helpful meeting with Mr. Bernier and Mr. Neville in the law department last Friday, and I appreciate them taking the time to meet with me. But as you may be aware, over the last couple years, we've spent a lot of time talking about short-term rentals, and there were certain assumptions based on our understanding at that time of what our ordinances said that actually led to us doing nothing with what our ordinances were, which at the time we were under the impression that in doing nothing, our ordinances currently just treated all rentals the same, short-term or long-term, same licensing, regulatory requirements, that kind of thing. What's come to light recently is that, in fact, our ordinances don't say that. In fact, our current ordinances, as we stand here right now, short-term rentals are illegal in Livonia, with the exception of one specific zoning district, which is not a residential zoning district. That caught me by surprise, because that was very different than the assumption we were dealing with last week, which is why I sat down with our law department on Friday, and they walked me through it, and I now understand where that came from. So the good news for you is that Short-term rentals, as we stand here right now, are illegal according to our ordinances. So there's not really anything council needs to do with this. It is, as Council President McIntyre just said, this point is an administrative response question, and I know that the law department is very much on top of this. I think one of you mentioned you've talked to them already. So there's an enforcement thing that we have to deal with here. But from a legal perspective, I think we're good. That being said, however, it begs the question of why did we just now figure this out? And without getting into all the nitty-gritty, the language between our zoning ordinance and our code of ordinances, it requires quite a bit of cross-referencing between the two to come to the conclusion that I just described to you. And I am entirely convinced that that is the proper conclusion, as it's been laid out to me. But I do think that we have an opportunity, you know, when I was sitting down for an hour last week with our city attorneys, and I said to them, I said, guys, look, I know you're the lawyers, but it shouldn't be this hard. It should, like, somebody should be able to pick up the ordinances and see exactly what the ordinance says. And they agreed with me. But I think there's an opportunity right now to do a language cleanup between our zoning ordinance and our code of ordinances, so we don't have the same type of confusion in the future. And so with that, Madam President, I would like to offer to just refer to our law department to look at cleaning up the language between the zoning ordinance and the code of ordinances, so that our city's stance on where we stand with short-term rentals is crystal clear, which it was not before. I know this is not a surprise to Mr. Bernier. We talked about it last Friday, so he knows what I'm asking for. But I'd like to offer a motion that we refer to that to the law department.
I'll support.
Yeah, go ahead. Kathy.
I heard it.
Go ahead for
We'll give
White.
it to Councilmember
Yeah.
White. Is there any discussion on this? Councilmember McCullough?
Thank you, Madam President. Just in general, just to echo Vice President Barr, this is something that I think all of us on this dais have dealt with different residents in different pockets of the area. And I guess this is something I fully support on, obviously, moving forward, that you guys have dealt with this for 2 months, in theory, right, since August. And you have this much commotion, and it's almost like a bad seed enters a neighborhood. And, you know, we don't want to see you leave. And I'm glad that we do have the right language in place, and I'm fully supportive in making sure we have the right language going forward. One of you said, you know, what would you like if this was your neighborhood? And I could only fathom it. So I'm glad that this is against our ordinance right now, and hopefully law can clean it up. But going forward, I fully support getting some language in place so that this doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Councilmember Jolly?
Thank you, Madam President. So let me say that I'm sorry that you're dealing with this. This is a risk of this type of business, and it shouldn't happen, and it is illegal in the city of Livonia. We've had you're at least the third instance of a really horrible situation being described to us on council. I know that our law department is being vigilant in terms of prosecuting these and shutting them down as quickly as they can. Cleaning up the language might be necessary to communicate that these are illegal a little bit clearer to people, to kind of nip it in the bud, if you will, so people don't even start these things. But let me be clear in telling you that I'm absolutely happy about the stance of the city of Livonia not allowing these in residential neighborhoods. And any changes to that ordinance language must reflect that to have my support on it. Listen, you bought houses in residential neighborhoods, zoned residential. You should have a stability of neighbor there, whether they own their home or they're there under a long-term renting situation, to know who your neighbors are, because that's what you signed up for. So let us do what we can, and I trust that the law department will do something. We want to keep you in Livonia, we want to make you happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Jolly. Councilmember Toy?
Thank you very much. If I may, to the residents that have come in and those of people that are watching from home, thank you for coming in and reporting this, because if you didn't do that, I don't know that a lot of people would know about it. I mean, it occurs to me, if nobody answered your calls, then it was going on, you know, to the point where it escalated over and over again. And it can be a very dangerous proposition with people buying up homes and then renting them for party homes, obviously. It would be like somebody running a business out of their house, having big deliveries. I mean, this is worse because it's, you know, early in the morning and, you know, all kinds of things happen. in that regard. So I don't speak for all my colleagues, but I'm sure we're all very sorry, and we obviously don't want you to leave. We want you to enjoy this city. It's a great city. I wouldn't let that hinder you, but anytime there's a problem, you need to call, and call one of us, okay? I don't care. Call me at 2 or 3 in the morning. I'll give you my cell phone. Sarah in our office has all our phone numbers and all our emails. That's part of our job, to help you out. That's why we serve here. So if there's a problem, give us a holler if you're not getting it remedied by others. And call the mayor's office. They're very responsive as well. So please, let us know. Thanks.
All right, thank you, and thank you to my colleagues for all we need to take a vote. We have a motion to refer this to law to clean up the language and clarify. Vice President Barr?
Just very quickly, I just want to, after all that, I just want to reiterate that what I'm proposing is not changing the ordinance. We don't need to. The ordinance right now doesn't allow it. It's just cleaning up the language so it's more clear to us to limit some of the confusion we had before. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, anything else? Anyone from the audience who wishes to communicate on this particular issue? Okay. All right, Clerk Nash, would you please take the roll call vote on the referring of the language to the Law Department?
Councilmember Donovic?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
Aye. And the motion carries. So this matter will be referred to the Law Department, and now that we've done this, the cycle is the Law Department will come back to the council in a meeting to discuss this and present language that will really codify the prohibition of this. So, I'm sorry, did I misspeak?
No, you didn't at all. I just want to make it clear, though, just so everyone else who's watching this on TV, is our position is they're all illegal.
Right.
And we do have to draw a distinction between, everybody wants to talk to them about it as Airbnbs. We're not using that terminology. Airbnb is simply a computer platform to advertise rentals.
Short-term
These are
rentals.
short-term rentals. Our ordinance allows for long-term traditional rentals of properties, which are fine because you have the same family. It's our position that in all the residential districts except for one, as Mr. Barr pointed out, short-term rentals are illegal. We are currently prosecuting a few people. I've talked to face-to-face to the people who own that house that the residents talked about, and my understanding is that's going to become a long-term rental property, is my understanding. So hopefully that'll eliminate one problem.
All right, thank you very much for the clarification, Mr. Bernier. All right, so thank you very much. And I understand we have others here that would wish to communicate with the council this evening on a different items. So if you would, is it on an agenda item or a general item? Okay, then please come to the podium. Good evening.
Good evening. I am Amelia Lounsbury. I reside at 28012 West Stanmore Drive.
What was the address, just for,
Yes, 28012 West Stanmore,
Stanmore?
M-O-O-R,
Yep,
as I tell everyone. I'm feeling very humble about bringing this issue after the last. However, it has been an ongoing problem. I'm here to represent the Parkwoods neighborhood. We have an ongoing problem from our recycle truck, leaving broken glass. I was told not to bring show and tell, but this is half a street. We do not have sidewalks. We can't walk our dogs. Our kids play in the street. We don't have sidewalks. For 2 seasons, summer, fall, 2 years, I've been calling the Livonia Sanitation, and I've been referred to GFL to call them and let them know that there are piles of glass everywhere the truck stops. Big chunks. People are concerned about their tires. This time, I did reach out to Jennifer Simmons, and she sent me a wonderful reply, but I wanted to bring it to the awareness of the city council because, like I told my neighbors, how can you help us if you don't know that it's going on? I just want to emphasize that I've called 5+ times last year, 5+ times this year. I get the same runaround. We will get perhaps 1 week of relief, which is nice because it takes a full 2 weeks before the tires have ground all the glass away. Our streets are beautiful and sparkly. They're asphalt with glass embedded. But I do feel like a prisoner in my own house. And I have to drive to Rotary Park, which is a lovely park. I would do it anyway, but I have to walk my dog. I just want to bring it to your awareness. I understand that the GFL contract will be in renewal in a couple of years. I don't know if there's any remediation for their ongoing problem. They just don't seem to understand we don't have sidewalks. And I'm here to represent the Parkwoods neighborhood, that being east of Middle Belt, south of 6 Mile, containing the streets of North Stanmore, West Stanmore, Whitcomb, Harrison, but I've also been witness to, I had to turn back, actually, on
You have
Thursday.
30 seconds left.
Okay. Also, I want to mention Fulton Pines Court, Savoy Street, and Grove Street that I personally am aware of. I was still dodging glass with my dog today. Just want to make you aware. Hope I've covered all the points. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming. As I expressed before, we always appreciate it when residents come. Of course, we like it when residents come tell us how great we are, but that's not usually why they come. But we always, well, we appreciate people coming because, again, this is how we're all aware of the issues, and this is how other people in the city hear about the issues. Again, as we said before, Ms. Thomas is our liaison to the mayor's office, which makes us to all the administrative departments that report up through the mayor. And could you please just leave your phone number too, so we can,
Certainly.
again, just so we like to close the loop from the council office. But you will be getting a response. I will say this, I'm sorry for the problems you're having with GFL. We have had a lot of issues with trash this year due to staffing shortages, due to floods, due to a lot of things. GFL, I know, has been very responsive to the city in trying to address these problems, and we will be following up, and GFL will be very interested in following up as well. And not making apologies for anyone. This shouldn't happen. You should be able to go out in your streets.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank you very
it's
much
the
for-
ongoing nature.
For taking the time to communicate with us this evening.
And thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so we have someone else communicate with us. Please come to the podium.
Hi,
Good evening.
my name's Connie Dickey, and I live on Rayburn in Livonia here. And kind of piggyback with her frustration, Planned Parenthood. As I was writing my notes for tonight, I was sitting in my one room. In a matter of 5 minutes, 20 horns blasting up and down Farmington Road. It's a horn every 15 seconds. That starts at 8, between 8 and 8:20 in the morning. It doesn't stop until 5 o'clock when the workers go home. Also, I don't know if you're aware, but Planned Parenthood has been closed for at least 4 weeks. But the noise level and the honk for life signs are blaring out there all day long. And it's to the point where the people out there take the sign and turn around and go like this to our houses, like ha-ha. I went out one day to clean my mailbox, totally ignoring, washing my mailbox, and I hear somebody yell, Connie, call the police. There's a car there. And all I'm doing is cleaning my mailbox. And so, obviously, our names are known. They've investigated a neighbor into the background and mailed things to our homes. It's not getting any easier. It is not. The no parking signs have worked for our safety, but the noise level and frustration is still very strong. There is an ordinance against honking, and we know the police department can't do anything about the people on the street, but there's got to be something that we can do to stop them holding the honk for life. and 90% of the people going by have no idea it's for the abortions. They just do it because, number one, the pandemic is devastating, and number two is, hey, I see a honk, I'm gonna honk. And there has been city vehicles that have honked at it too, and it's frustrating as a taxpayer. We just want to know if there's any more ordinances being made about the sound, or if they're on the signs that are out there. I don't care about the protesters. We
Ma'am,
have
you
a
have 30 seconds left.
Okay, we have a protester that comes independently, walks up and down, and there's never a honk. But when those green signs come out, it is constant, and it's very frustrating. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dickey, for taking the time to come tonight. Once again, Ms. Thomas is here, and she will be looking into, I would assume, probably starting with the law department, what ordinances are on the books that may be able to be enforced against that, and also, perhaps the law department, the police department on enforcement. So, thank you for bringing this to our attention.
I also want to add.
Excuse me, you need to come back to the podium, and you have just a few seconds left.
Just half a second. We too have called the police and no response.
Okay.
So,
Madam Chair.
Excuse me, Vice President Barr had,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and then.
Yeah,
Vice
thank you, Madam
President
President. It's been a while since we've had this topic come up here, but it brings to mind something that I've thought in the past, and I think this just moves me to bring this up tonight. I feel badly for the neighbors over there. Look, anybody that knows me or has followed this council for the last few years knows my disdain for that type of business. That's no secret. I wouldn't want that next to my house. It's within feet of some of the houses over there. Not to mention that, but this is the type of business that attracts protest activity. And while that protest activity is fully legal, it's not, I definitely understand the frustration with that increased activity for the people that live over there. And so there's not a lot legally that we can do about this situation, but the question that has come to my mind over and over again over the last several years has been, how can we avoid this in the future? And look, I'm not an attorney, but we have separation requirements for liquor and massage establishments in the city. And I guess I would like to offer a motion to refer to the law department for its report and recommendation, the question of whether we can implement a separation requirement between abortion providers and residential zone land. Something that I've thought about different times, like I said, and just with this coming up again, I think it's something that's reasonable to at least look into what the legal options are for that. And I'd ask for support for that motion.
Support.
Discussion? Councilmember Toy?
Wait a minute, are we voting on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is discussion on the motion.
Okay, I just wanted to ask Mrs. Dickey, which side of Rayburn does she live on, west or east?
But we'll go to that, okay, after
Okay,
the
I
discussion
appreciate it.
on the
Thank you very
motion.
much.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, anyone from the audience wish to comment on this? All right, and this is a comment on the motion of referring the issue of. Okay, but this is specific on the motion, okay? Anyone else on this motion of referring this issue of separating abortion providers from residential areas to the law department? All right, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
Councilmember Donovic?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
Aye. So the motion carries, so we'll refer this question to the law department. All right, now we go back to, I think we have time, Councilmember White, for one more in our half hour.
Well, we're done with the 30 minutes, but,
Our 30 minutes is up. Can people indicate if they're here for audience communication? Because if we have more than one person, okay, we always go back. If we can't fit everyone in the first half hour, we go back at the end, and we stay as long as it takes. So, and we have a short agenda tonight, so I'd ask you to just be patient, and you'll have an opportunity for audience communication at the end of our regular agenda, or the rest of the meeting agenda. All right, we have no reports from the mayor or other city officials this evening. At this time, we go to the consent agenda. Council.
So moved, Madam Chair. Consent.
Support from Councilmember Jolly. Any discussion from the audience on consent agenda? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on approval of the consent agenda?
Councilmember Donavick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
Aye, and the consent agenda is approved unanimously. This time, moving on, we go to unfinished business, meeting of the committee. And item number 2 is a committee of the whole, and we met on August 25th, 2021, for a rather lengthy and meeting that involved a lot of residents and a lot of department heads and city officials. The council members present and committee of the whole includes all members of the council on the committee, myself, the president of the council, Vice President Scott Barr, Rob Donovick, Councilmember Rob Donovick, Councilmember Jim Jolly, and Councilmember Laura Toy. The other city officials present, and we had requested many of the department heads and the mayor and representatives from the mayor's office. We had Thomas Goralski, who's the police captain, he's our interim police chief, Brian Kahn, the director of emergency preparedness, Paul Bernier, our city attorney, LaShawn Thomas, our director of governmental affairs, Ted Davis, our director of parks and recreation, Don Roraff, our director of public works, Jacob Rushlow, the assistant director of public works, Todd Zelinsik, our city engineer, and Tom Welsh, our director of golf services for the city. And we had a significant number of citizens there as well. We convened the meeting at 7:02. Excuse me just a moment. The subject matter was flooding, infrastructure, and watershed issues. And this was brought to council, a lot of issues have been raised with residential flooding in various areas of the city. This particular area of the city and subdivision is south of Whispering, right? That's Whispering Willows Golf Course. But this was, when we put this into committee, it was the overall issue of flooding in residential areas. So the idea was for us to look at this holistically with all stakeholders, both residents and all the people in the city who represent departments that have something to do with water management, our golf courses, our engineering, our infrastructure. And to understand if and how flooding in residential areas could be mitigated through action by the city, the cost of such mitigation work, and possible funding sources for the work. We had numerous residents who live south of Whispering Willows Golf Course speaking out about the significant flooding episodes they've experienced with increasing frequency. Previously, significant flooding would occur every 3 to 4 years. They are now experiencing what they say are three to four episodes each year. We discussed the following mitigation actions with understanding that none of these items in isolation would resolve the problem. For us to continue, the city to continue proactive maintenance to ensure that drains are clear and free of blockages, with residents clearing leaves, small brush, debris from the drains in front of their houses and calling the city if drains are blocked with large brush or things that residents can't remove themselves. For us to continue to model stormwater flows to understand the level of rainfall that is likely to create, or that creates a risk of residential flooding. To utilize our current Green Mead master plan process, and Vice President Barr mentioned at the beginning of the meeting when he gave a readout on that we have a master plan out there open for input from citizens. And one of the issues that citizens could comment on is the possibility of adding a detention pond on the Green Mead property. David, did I get that right? Is it a detention pond or a retention pond?
It'd be detention.
Detention, okay.
Anything with an outlet is a detention. If it holds it and infiltrates, then it's retention.
Thank you. You all explain that to me many times every year, and I still can't remember. Anyway, a detention pond at Greenmead, because the issue that we have with the sub that's south of Whispering Willows is that the water comes from across 8 Mile, down through the golf course, it runs down around where Greenmead is, right? Am I getting this right, Dave? And then comes, and then ends up flooding, has nowhere to go, so ends up flooding the subdivision. Did I get that roughly right?
I think more of the flow is actually coming from the south edge of Greenmead. I
Okay.
believe the creek that comes across 8 Mile actually goes farther on the north side of
Okay.
the golf course and flows down through Fox Creek
Okay,
instead.
so I didn't
But-
get that exactly right, but the belief is that a detention pond on the Green Mead property would help gather some of this stormwater, this excess stormwater that now floods the neighborhood. We discussed that that would require funding, and it was also require approval of the Livonia Historical Preservation Commission. And Whispering Willows, the golf course itself does not have enough room to accommodate a sufficiently sized detention pond to cover the, that would absorb the volume of stormwater. Wayne County's 2021 updating of its stormwater code will help prevent future flooding issues, but it doesn't address current areas where there are flooding issues. We also talked about the possibility of looking at a special assessment district for funding mitigation projects, and we also need to ensure that any new developments that are approved comply with the grading requirements included in their site plan approvals. In other words, anytime there's a new development, one of the things that's required is for the developers to address the grading between a new development and existing homes, and we require that. We just need to make sure that when the development is put in, that the grades are adhered to. And we do pay attention to that, but we need to really make sure that that happens. And we don't think that it doesn't happen in most cases, but again, it's something that we need to pay attention to. And we also talked about thinking about when development happens, that every time you put additional asphalt or concrete or hard surface, non-permeable surface in the city, you increase the runoff. And then we talked about the fact that unfortunately, there are no dedicated funds for the management of stormwater. Drinking water and sewer systems require all of the funding that we receive for water management. There was discussion on the possibility of implementing a stormwater tax. And again, when you hear these possibilities, this is a committee meeting where nothing gets decided or voted on, we simply discuss it. And the idea was to have everyone present to understand that there's not an easy or quick fix or inexpensive fix. And right now, we don't have funding available for significant projects. There was also discussion about Grand Rapids, that they have an excellent stormwater management system, and Livonia will dive deeper into understanding what they do and how the projects are funded. The committee recommended a resolution for the administration to provide a proposal regarding mitigation issues in reference to the Willowwood subdivision, and the item will remain in committee for future updates. Councilmember Donovan.
Thank you, Madam President. This is generally about this topic, but it's a shift to a different part of the city. If I may, if it's okay to go to Mr.
Please.
Lear. Mr. Lear, recently speaking to another resident located off of Deering Street in the Clemens Circle neighborhood over around Plymouth Middlebelt area. I had spoken to a resident that had mentioned that they've been experiencing a lot of flooding in their backyards. And they believe it may be from the elimination of a combined sanitary stormwater system that the city started removing years ago. So I don't have all the facts. It was just a conversation, and I kind of wanted to get a better understanding. Do we across the city of Livonia have a lot of this where it happened, where we eliminated combined sanitary stormwater systems, and is that causing more water back up in communities, neighborhoods?
Yes, we do have a number of areas, particularly in the older subdivisions, when they were put in, they were allowed to do stormwater and sanitary as a combined. Early 80s, the government came through and said we had to separate out the stormwater from that, which led us to capping off storm drainage in the backyards to be able to use the sewers as sanitary. Of course, that caused problems with a lot of the tightly packed home neighborhoods where there's no storm sewers in the back, so everyone's draining to the back. So, yeah, we've got a lot of those. Through the years, we have gone through and tried to pick off the larger instances with some rear yard drainage programs. But as the time went on, kind of funding disappeared for some of those. We have done some of the projects in recent years again, but there's always more and more showing up with the larger storms that we're getting more frequently. So this year is worse than last year, and once you start getting standing water, it just amplifies because it compacts the ground. Soils don't take in the water anymore, so if you don't have the time to dry it out, it just keeps perpetuating itself. And so yes, mainly on the south end of town where the older neighborhoods are that are tightly packed, we do have a lot of those areas.
Thank you, Mr. Lear. I appreciate it. I know speaking to the resident, I encouraged for the resident to come to city council and talk about what they're experiencing. So thanks for the answer, Mr. Lear, and thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Vice President Barr?
Yeah, I don't know if this is appropriate time, but I'd like to offer the motion officially that we refer this item to the administration, provide a proposal regarding mitigation issues in reference to the Willwood subdivision. I know Council President, I'm sorry, I offer the motion. I need a second before I have to say anything else.
Second.
Okay, Madam
Second,
President.
Councilmember Jolly.
Madam President.
Sir.
Just, you did an excellent job explaining the outcome of our 2-hour meeting. You talked a lot about the potential of a detention pond at Green Mead. I learned something tonight, thank you. But I just want to point out that this proposal doesn't prescribe what the solution would be, even though that's the one that we talked about. This is just recognizing that we have an issue that's going to require some investment. We'd like to better understand what that would require, so.
Thank you for that important clarification, Vice President Barr. Appreciate that. Would anyone like to comment on this? And this is the referring the issue of, as Vice President Barr said, all the possible mitigation issues at Willow Woods to the administration.
She's raising her hands, so I told her to come down.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kayla Licklider. My address is 14040 Hillcrest Street. And in regards to the mitigation efforts, I would like to include in that, if possible, green infrastructure projects and really connecting with either the legislator or community programs so that we can put ourselves ahead of the measure without really spending a lot of money on things that aren't built to last. Anything like detention basins and stuff like that is going to require money down the road at some point or another. It's inevitable. So then when you build things like rain gardens, it reduces the need for project funding later on. And this is also something that people can take on an initiative with on their own. I would also like to point out the irony of other agenda items, and that is the site condominium or site plan. And that is the fact
Okay,
that,
right now, we're on.
Okay.
We're not on that agenda item,
Okay.
all right?
So then in project development
We're talking right now about the
specifically.
motion of referring a proposal for Willow Woods to the administration.
okay. And then I would also like to point out that it's not just in Willow Woods. I mean, this is not something that, like Rob Donovic said, is that it's not something that's limited to Willow
Right.
Woods. This is really a whole systemic issue.
Right.
That is really wreaking havoc. And so last night, Gill Road, between 7 and 8 Mile, I was driving a pretty big Ram truck and almost got stuck in that water. There was a car parked in the middle of the road. Nobody was in it, it was just left there. And then there were 3 other cars there. So it's kind of just getting worse, and I assume that's because of the rain event that we had last week, and the ground's still being wet, so.
All right. Thank you for your comments. We're just referring, did you want to comment?
I'll just make one comment if I may. This is kind of just in fun, but I believe what you said about Gill Road, but just as a guy that played a part in designing that Ram truck, I can't imagine that your Ram truck had trouble getting through that. I just want to state that for the
I mean,
record,
the
so.
water was very high. It was not, it was
I couldn't
impressive,
resist,
the
sorry.
water was impressive.
Well, let me thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Very much, and also to tell you that referring this one item for a specific neighborhood, the reason this item is staying in committee is because we recognize this is not just a problem for Willow Woods. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And would encourage you to keep watching for additional meetings,
Absolutely.
and we welcome your input, so thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, if no one else, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll call vote on the resolution to refer this to the administration?
Councilmember Donovic?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
Aye, and the motion carries, so we will be referring to the administration, providing a proposal regarding floodwater mitigation issues in the Willwood subdivision. With that, we move on, and as I mentioned, this item will remain in committee. With that, we move on to unfinished business. Number 3 is a proposed amendment to the Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance as amended. This comes to us from the Department of Law regarding petition 2021-04-01-02 submitted by Crosswind to rezone the properties at 37711, 37631, and 37601 Plymouth Road, located on the south side of Plymouth Road between Newburgh Road and Jarvis Avenue in the southwest quarter of Section 30 from C1 Local Business to NM1 Neighborhood Multifamily District. Councilmember Donovan?
I'd like to offer approving, or just a first reading?
A first reading.
Yeah, I'd like to offer first reading.
All right. Mr. Bernier, do you want to explain why we're having a second first reading of this?
Yeah, sure. It's over an abundance of caution on this. We had a first reading under the old ordinance, and since that time, since the old ordinance, we've adopted the Vision 21, the Livonia Vision 21 ordinance, and so we're in that catch-22 where we actually have the first reading was under the old ordinance. And we thought the safer approach, and we discussed this quite a bit, we thought the safer approach was to just do a first reading and a second reading. That way, we'll actually have had 3 readings on it, asking that you invoke the emergency clause. That way, we can have a first reading, a second reading, and be approved. But again, it's because we got caught in that period of time where we made the change.
And to clarify, that's why it's unusual that we have the site plan. Generally, what happens with a waiver for a rezoning, we have a first reading, which there's no vote taken. We have when you have a significant issue like a change of zoning, unlike a normal meeting where we'd have a resolution offered and then we'd vote. At one meeting, we offer a first reading, and then it gives everyone who has an interest or concern, it gives council additional time to do research. Then we don't vote on it. At a subsequent meeting, a second reading is offered where we vote on it and becomes effective upon publication in the newspaper. Generally, when we do a first reading on a rezoning or a waiver, before we do the second reading and the vote, we require a site plan. We have the site plan on the agenda tonight. Normally, we would have gotten the site plan prior to this, but because we had to do a first read, we're asking for a second read and a vote before we've had the site approval, but we have the site approval tonight. So I apologize if that confused anyone more, but for those who pay attention to zoning and rezoning and site plans, I wanted everyone to understand why we have an unusual cadence tonight. Councilwoman Toy?
Madam Chair, I do believe we need an emergency clause to be invoked pursuant to chapter, I think it's it would be 6, section 23, I'm learning my law, of the city charter, and that the proposed amendment is part of the Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance as amended by our Department of Law, so it'll be ready for second reading.
All right,
And a roll call.
so we've had a request that the emergency clause be invoked. We need a second on that, correct, Mr. Bernier?
Correct. Support. Donovan.
Donovic, any discussion on invoking the emergency clause? Anyone from the audience? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll call vote on invocation of the emergency clause to suspend the rules?
Councilmember Donovic?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
Aye, so we've suspended the rules, and we now will go to the second reading. Councilmember Donovic?
Yes, I'd like to support second reading at this time.
All right, so now, are there any comments on the vote to approve this? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll call vote?
Councilmember Donovic?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
Aye, and so the motion carries, and we will now, the proposed amendment to the Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance will be approved relative to submitted by Crosswind. It will be, and this will take effect upon publication in the newspaper, and also it's respectfully suggested that the item above be received and placed on file for the information of the council. I think I probably should have read that before we did the motion, sorry. All right, with that, we go on to item number 4. This is a waiver petition. This comes to us from the Planning Commission regarding petition 2021-07-02-13, submitted by Leo Suave to develop a planned residential development consisting of a condominium subdivision with 19 detached, single-family homes on the properties located on the south side of Plymouth Road between Newburgh Road and Jarvis Avenue, 37711, 37631, and 37601 Plymouth Road in the southeast quarter of Section 30.
Madam President,
Councilmember Barr.
I'd like to offer an approving.
Support from Councilmember Toy. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Councilmember White.
I have a question for Mr. Termina. Mr. Termina, condition number 10, which has to do with requiring the developer and the contractors to mitigate problems with soil erosion and airborne dirt and dust from migrating off-site. Is that a new type of condition, or have we been putting that in our resolutions, frequently?
No, you'll see that.
Okay.
As somewhat boilerplate language, it's a reminder that they have to utilize best management practices as it relates to soil erosion and sedimentation control, something that they're required to do anyway through permitting with the city.
Okay, I just don't remember seeing that language, and do you know how it's enforced on windy days? I mean, does, is it something that the residents are expected to call the city and say, wait a second here, they're not supposed to be moving dirt around, or what is the practice?
If it's a problem, they are notified, the contractor will be notified that they may have to take some measures, either stop construction that day or water the site to bring the dust levels down. So,
And that would be brought to our attention by probably the neighboring residents?
yeah, oftentimes that's the case, unfortunately, unless we can get out there ahead of time and be proactive with it, but you're
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Certainly. Councilmember Donovan, Councilmember Toy, and then we'll go to the petitioner.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to say I'm excited about this project. I think it offers a unique and a diverse option for homeowners or new potential homeowners in a community. It's a nice little area right there of 19 different types of homes. Not everybody wants large typical lots. Not everybody wants very large homes, or maybe they want a larger home on a smaller lot. So I think it's something unique for also senior residents that may necessarily want that sort of tranquility, that quiet little tight-knit neighborhood, or even your young folks, so to speak, that maybe be transient, maybe travel for work more often, et cetera. So I'm excited about this project, and it's offering a unique option to potential residents. Thank you, Madam President.
What'd you say, you young people, or young people, or?
You young
some
people.
seniors?
I'm
You
old.
young people,
I'll be
got it,
30
okay.
at the end of this year, so I'm no longer young.
All right, Councilmember Toy?
I guess I'm on the other end of the spectrum. That's okay, that's all right. Madam Chair, and to Mr. Toromina, if I may, Mr. Toromina, there's quite a green belt on this, as I recall. There's a nice treat area, and am I right on that? Because we did have an email on it that said they were concerned about, not enough green and all this kind of thing, so I just wanted to double check it. We're good, right?
So the plan provides for somewhat heavy landscaping along the perimeter of the site, including the western boundary, which borders existing single-family homes. There is a green belt along that area with a berm and plantings on top of it. I would say it's probably the plantings that'll provide the screen. It's a rather narrow site, so the separation is somewhat limited, but it will be heavily landscaped and bermed.
And it meets our standards, obviously.
Yes, it does.
Mr. Chairman, is the petitioner allowed to at least construct one of the models? Is that permissible under this new guidelines, or no? on the site so that perhaps they can start selling them, or?
Yeah, they usually work those details out with, between assessment and inspection and engineering in terms of getting the home under construction. Sometimes they can provide a legal description for one of the units ahead of time, but that's something that we'll have to work out the details with the other departments to see whether or not it's possible on this site.
Do we need to put that in here as an option?
No, that's something that
No.
we work out internally.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Donovan and Councilmember Jolly. You're
He's all
good?
set.
I'm sorry, I went to him first.
That's okay.
The other gentleman next to him, Councilmember Jolly.
Thank you, Madam
All the
President.
young people here look alike.
Except some have lost more hair than others. So I think we've gotten some criticism in regards to the development of green space in the city. And it's not something that I think any of us take lightly or anything that anybody here is striving for. But in the previous item, item number 3, we rezoned this from a commercial use to a residential use. That's actually a less impactful use of the property. So we're moving in a positive direction as far as I can see that. And, you know, when we're out in the community, in regards to the questions that we get, the concerns that people get, they consistently tell us that they want housing options like this. So even though this is not something that I take any joy in developing a treed lot here, moving it from green space to a residential area, I'm okay with this happening in this regard because it is in demand in our community, and we have moved the zoning from commercial to a residential purpose. I'm still finding some satisfaction in regards to the fact that if we look at the adjoining property to the west, I presume the property line and the tree line will be consistent with that going down further to the west. So I think there will be a relatively thick tree line, at least more so as you go west on this property from Hines Drive as well. So I'll be supporting this, but I thought it was important that we address this and the concerns that we've gotten. We do hear the emails, we read the emails, we hear the concerns of residents, but sometimes things do make sense, and although they're not an ideal usage, they are a better usage than what was originally possible on the site. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jolly, anyone else? Before we go to Mr. Pastor. Good evening, Mr. Pastor.
Good evening, how are you? Yes, I'm Ryan Pastor. I'm at 16213 Ellen Drive, Livonia, if anyone wants to know. I am here in place of my dad, John Pastor, who we are representing Leo Silve for the Silve development. And I am asking to get these approval for a 7-day waiver so that we can have consideration for a building permit for at least one house this year, that they can get going on that, so they can try to get up before winter.
Mr. Bernier, should we do that after the vote?
I'll be honest, I'm not even sure what he's talking about.
Madam President, if I
Him
may,
too.
I think he might be asking for a no veto letter.
That's what I'm,
Okay, I didn't understand it that way.
and remind,
I have not talked to the mayor about this, so I can't tell you what her position
We
is.
can always request one and she can decide.
We can,
okay. Do we do that after the
yes.
vote, correct? Yeah, okay. So, Mr. Pastor, we will take the vote on the approval of the site plan and stay right there, because then you can ask us for a non-veto letter.
Okay, thank you.
All right? All right. Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on approval of the site plan?
Councilmember Donovan?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
Aye. So we've approved the site plan. So now you would ask us to request a non-veto letter from the mayor.
I'm offering up, can I have a non-veto letter for the Silve land development?
All right, so I believe the process is we add to the approval a request from the mayor's office,
you would do a resolution.
Oh, we do need a
request- Resolution requesting the mayor, and it's ultimately up to the mayor's decision
Okay,
on the non-veto.
all right, so we do need a resolution. That's what it means.
No,
What? I'm going to go to Councilmember White, who's a former city attorney.
in our practice has been, we just informally ask the mayor's office for a
That's-
non-veto
okay.
letter. We don't vote on it.
That's what I, Councilmember Jolly?
Oh, no, I just wanted to speak when you're done. I believe you're right.
Okay, thank you. So we will request a non-veto letter from the mayor. We don't know if we'll get it. You can call the mayor's office or call LaShawn later this week to see if you've been given the non-veto letter.
All right,
All
thank
right?
you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pastor.
Thanks for
and
your
we
time.
look forward to seeing this project come to fruition. Councilmember Jolly.
I was just going to say, if Ryan keeps attending these meetings, he's going to lose his hair like his dad did.
Yeah, look what happened to Jim.
All right, very good. All right. We have no new business, so we go back at this time to audience communication for anyone who did not have the opportunity to communicate with the council at the beginning of the meeting during audience communication on any item not in this evening's agenda. We ask you now's your opportunity to do so, so please come to the podium.
I couldn't remember.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Emily Sismus. I live at 9999 Deering. I was the resident that Mr. Donovic was speaking to about the flooding, so thank you for bringing that up earlier. I am here with some of my neighbors tonight to discuss our ongoing flooding problems. We live on Deering near Inkster between Plymouth and Chicago, so the southeast part of Livonia, the older neighborhood that was referenced. There is no backyard storm drain along our street, so there is nowhere for water to go if it rains even a moderate amount. And this is something that many people don't really notice in their own backyards. They don't understand the importance of it until it's not there. So you can imagine that if a street had no storm drains at all, it would just immediately flood with water. That's what our backyards do, because that water can't make it to the street. So even a moderate rain, not even an extreme flood, our backyards are full of water up to the house, in the garage, in the basements. It's a week at least before we can even step in the backyard without sinking into the ground. That's how much water there is. We step out our back door into this much water, just splash into a puddle. These floods have happened several times each year since we moved in 4.5 years ago, and they have been getting worse each year. It's already caused our garage floor to collapse, so it's cracked and sunk in now, and it floods, so we can't even store anything in our garage without it getting ruined. Plus our basement flooded, so then we had to move everything to the garage where it also floods. We want to get the garage replaced, a new floor, but we can't, the contractor told us, because the water is just going to cause it to crack again. And this is not just us, all of our neighbors along the street have similar issues. We've learned that not having a backyard storm drain is a violation of the city code 1624-220, which requires a drain at least every 480 feet along the rear yards.
Emily, could you please give me the violation, which?
16.24.220. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's the number for the ordinance.
You are, thank you.
Okay. And that's every 480 feet, but we don't have any along our block because
You have 30 seconds left.
it was closed off when the combined system was capped, but then the city did not put in a separate storm drain system. We had an engineer out to look at it, basically told us, yeah, we know, but there's nothing we can do about it. So the city has put us out of code by removing that drain decades ago and will not put a new one in. The cost for us to do this ourselves would be tens of thousands of dollars. Everyone on the street just keeps selling their houses. There are 5 houses up for sale out of the 10 or 13 right now that are affected by this. We like our house, we'd like to stay, but if it's not fixed, we just plan to move because it's just a hopeless situation back there. And it's just really frustrating, so, thank you.
thank you very much for coming tonight and
Sure.
sharing the situation on your street,
What was the
Council.
address again? What was her address again?
999 Deering.
All nines?
Yes. Councilmember Jolly.
Thank you, Madam President. So I exchanged some emails with you as well. We did have this committee meeting in regards to flooding issues. When we called for the original committee meeting that was read out earlier tonight, it wasn't specifically for that neighborhood alone, but I believe that the neighborhood residents in that neighborhood were largely the only ones to come out. We are still in a regular meeting here. I would like to make a motion that the city do an inventory and provide that to council in regards to where the areas of concern for flooding are in the city. And I'd like a second for that.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Toy.
And then I think a secondary motion after we vote on that one, I'd like to make a motion in regards to a financial plan to be put together to see how we would go about paying to correct situations such as this. And unfortunately, this is not the only neighborhood dealing with this. I live on a street that people wakeboard down, not wakeboard, excuse me, paddleboard down when we get these heavy rainstorms as well. So we need to have at least a plan and an outline of what kind of cost it would take to address this from a city's perspective and start to go from there. But we should do the first motion first, probably.
All right, I want to address the second motion when we get there. But anyway, okay, thank you, and we had support from
Yes.
Councilmember Toy. Any discussion on Mr. Jolly's motion?
Councilmember Donovic?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
Aye. So the motion carries, so we will, we're asking, that gives us formally asking the city, the administration, to give us an inventory of the areas that are likely to experience flooding or currently experience flooding.
And for a secondary motion, I'll offer a motion to have the city put together some kind of financial impact of what would it take to correct these situations. I'll be explicit, honestly, I don't know where the liability lies, right? But a starting point is understanding how much it would cost to fix before we can kind of figure out if it's the city's responsibility, number one, and number two, if there's a financial way to get there, okay? But I think that's a starting point.
I have a question to ask you, Mr. Jelly, and that is with, that was part,
Support, we need the support.
oh, I'm sorry.
Donovan.
Support from
I'll support.
Donovan.
Yeah.
We left this in committee, and part of the original, you're right, this did become a discussion about the Whispering Willows subdivision. The intention was that this be a discussion, a broad discussion of flooding. So with leaving this in committee, and one of, I think, one of the explicit items in this committee was the funding, what it would take and the funding mechanisms.
If I can respond?
Please.
I would just hope that upon successfully passing both of these motions, these could be things that we could discuss in that committee going
Okay.
forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Donovic.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to my colleague, Mr. Jim Jolly. I do think it's important for us to inventory, at least have a better understanding of where these combined sanitary and stormwater systems were removed, so we can have a better understanding. Is there 10 square miles of removed combined sanitary stormwater systems, or is there 100? And what would that cost present day? Now, let's face it, the reality is I don't think we're going to start putting shovels in ground and fixing this problem tomorrow. Just not going to happen. We don't have the money. But I do think it's important that as we move forward, that we have a better understanding as we experience more of these 100-year rainfalls to find out, this section of the city has a lot of removed system from 20, 30 years ago, and having an idea, a plan of action, how we can fix that and remedy that situation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember
Madam
Donovic.
President.
Vice President Barr.
So I appreciate the motions, and the only thing with this just seems really premature to me to be asking for the financial analysis of this, because I think even just the inventory piece sounds like a really big project to me, a good project, but a really big project. I will support this because obviously, you know, I anticipate a time where we would want to have the answers to the questions, but I guess I would support this, noting that these are two separate resolutions, and my hope would be that the administration would come back to us with the result of the first resolution and not have it be held up by this second one, which I think is a much deeper dive. And I think we'd want some of those answers from the first resolution first before we got to this point. So I don't have a problem putting in, you know, supporting it. I think it's much further down the line from where we are right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, could you please take the vote, Madam Clerk, on the asking for a financial framing of what it would take to resolve our flooding issues holistically and with infrastructure?
Councilmember Donavick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
Aye, and the motion carries, so we will refer to the administration a financial analysis of this. All right, is there anyone else who'd like to communicate with the council on any item not in this evening's agenda? Please, come to the podium.
Hello again.
Good evening.
Kayla Licklider. Do I need to give my address again?
You just give your name again, you already.
Okay. Kayla Licklider.
Okay.
Speaking in terms of what I was going to talk about earlier, the Sauve construction project.
That was on the agenda, so.
Okay, so this is not on the agenda.
Right, so you
Okay.
need to keep your
So then-
comments something very general that was not covered in an agenda item this evening.
Okay, well then I guess that kind of crosses everything off. So it can be on the agenda before the meeting when it starts?
The audience communication is an opportunity for people to communicate with the council on any item not on that evening's agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Because there were people on the list that had written Sauve.
Madam President?
Sauve construction.
Please.
I think I can make quick work of this. I suspect what you want to point out is the fact that on a night that we're talking about stormwater issues, that we approved a new development. And I think that message was implied and received by everybody earlier, and I think we understand your point, so.
Okay, then we'll leave it at that. I didn't know that was a rule. I wasn't familiar with that rule.
That's quite all right.
I'll just-
No,
I just also add, I think that was part of the reason Mr. Jolly said what he said about the fact that residential was a less intensive use than commercial, and I think he was alluding, so my point is, I think we heard your message. So I
Okay,
think you're good.
thanks.
Yep.
thank you, and let me just say, the first time everybody comes, right, the rules are something you learn as you go through things. And what we want to do is always encourage people to come and explain the rules in a way that doesn't make anybody feel bad or like we don't want you here. And anytime anybody wants clarification on how to come to a council meeting and address, Sarah Kasperich is in the council office, 466-2250. One of the numbers I know absolutely by heart and that my fingers go to dial. But Sarah's excellent at helping you, any questions you have about communicating with us during a meeting, outside a meeting.
So if I could ask, through the chair,
Please.
if I want to address an agenda item during the public meeting and put it on the public record, when can I do that?
During the agenda item.
Okay, well, we skipped over that.
Did I not call for audience communication?
No.
I remember you calling for every item, I thought.
I don't remember not. I don't remember a not.
Because usually Ms. Nash and I'll look at each other if you don't call for audience communication, and we didn't do that, so I don't recall you not doing it.
Councilmember Donovic.
Madam President, I know this is unique, is there a way to amend our rules to allow the resident to speak on this matter?
Yes, I think you could ask.
For
you could
2 minutes?
You could make a motion to amend the rules.
I'll support it for 2 minutes.
To suspend the rules.
To suspend the rules. I know, you're a good attorney. To suspend the rules to allow, and you said your name very quickly. What was your last name?
Licklider?
Licklider.
Yep.
To allow Ms. Licklider to address the council for 2 minutes on the audience, on the topic of the development, what I call jug handle.
Yes.
All right, so you've offered that. Do we have support?
I'll support.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on suspending the rules?
Councilmember Donovic?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
Aye, and don't start the clock till I'm done talking. I hope that the other thing you see here is that when people come and they don't understand the rules and we think that perhaps we didn't explain them clearly, what we want to do is make sure that we give opportunities to residents
Absolutely.
opportunity to speak. The rules aren't there to keep anybody ever from speaking.
Right.
Now your 2 minutes starts.
Thank you. So, thank you for confirming that you understood my point without actually saying it. But there was more, and that was, I did notice in the engineering correspondence with regard to that site development plan was that they didn't have a wastewater management plan prepared. And then when we talk about, making sure those things are presented to council when we're doing site plans, that those are included, and I don't know if I missed it at some point or not, but it didn't look like it was included in that, so, I just wanted to point that out.
I think you said wastewater management. Did you mean stormwater?
Stormwater management,
Okay.
yes. I think it's waste and storm,
No,
separately?
no.
Okay.
They're very separate.
So, yeah, so Chair David Lear could probably,
Well, I believe on this development, the storm water is actually discharging to a Wayne County system. So the stormwater management and detention requirements will be handled through Wayne County's engineering permitting. The wastewater permit has been, the plans have been approved by our office, but they have to go to the state of Michigan, Eagle, for approval, and those were only sent out, I believe, a couple of days ago or last week.
So they weren't approved?
They haven't been approved yet.
okay.
So neither the stormwater, the sanitary, or the water have not actually had permits approved for them at this time.
Madam President?
Just a moment. Anything else, Mr. Lair? So the process cannot move ahead, right, until the permits are received. Is that correct?
But it moved tonight.
Excuse me.
I would not encourage it to move forward.
Okay.
Because if something does change, then we're backtracking or having to retrofit, which we have had to do on past developments.
Okay.
I know they always want to try and get something in the ground before winter, but we kind of have to go out on a limb and hope that they get all their approvals
Okay.
correctly. So that's kind of
Thank you.
our thoughts. I mean, we try and help out as much as we can, but we just don't like to go too far out on a limb.
Thank you. Mr. Donovic?
Thank you, Madam President. Again, from my understanding, before the petitioner is allowed to even move forward and start doing groundwork, the petitioners be working with Wayne County to get their permits and work with the city engineer to make sure they have their permits to start that underground detention system.
Does that,
For Mr. Lear, sorry, through the chair for Mr. Lear.
The developer can actually, I believe he's gone out and cleared trees, which is allowed. He can get a grading permit through the city to strip topsoil or level the site and get it preliminary done. Putting actual pipe in the ground, he should be waiting for the actual Wayne County or state of Michigan or, our own permitting as well. So he would have probably, I'm not exactly sure, but would have came and received a soil erosion permit for the site grading ahead of time, but that's really all that we would have done up until we get approved plans and permits.
Because from my understanding, before you start actually erecting buildings, you're gonna have to do the underground work anyways, because you're not gonna build houses on top of ground, you're gonna have to rip up the lay pipes anyways underneath the homes.
You should, in a rush to try and get things ready for public viewing and pre-sales. They will, at risk, basically put in a foundation, hoping that they have the right elevations and things done before they get an actual permit sometimes.
Thank you very much.
President.
Yeah, thank you.
Pardon me?
Thank you.
You've had your 2 minutes, okay,
Okay,
to speak.
yeah, I was more so asking for clarity on how that goes into the
Okay,
mitigation
I'm gonna make a
efforts.
suggestion here, and that is that I think that's follow-up discussion.
Okay.
Would be good for you to contact, start with the mayor's office, who will direct you to the right,
Okay.
to the right part of the city to have your questions further answered, if that's
Okay.
acceptable to everyone.
Perfect, thank
All
you.
right? We always want to provide the answers, but oftentimes when we get down to details, those are better provided through a discussion with the appropriate department than all of us.
Okay.
But thank you very much. We're happy to see you here. Come back anytime. Now you know more of the rules, and we thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right. Anyone else wish to speak with the council, address the council on any item not in this evening's agenda?
Madam Chair, I
Yes?
would like to make a motion to close the meeting.
Support.
Any discussion? All right, I think we can say,
was wrong with
I'm
that?
sorry, Mr. McCullough wanted to speak, and I,
No, you're fine. I was, Madam
no, please, before, we haven't voted on the, we have not voted on the
I was just gonna
adjournment,
just
so
relay to
please.
the petitioners, you handled it correctly. There are a lot of special inspections and state and permitting that go into any kind of development. And I can assure you that they are very stringent when you're doing new development, especially stormwater management. The petitioner did bring up green technology, rain gardens, and the detention and retention basins. Those are like massive rain gardens. So the whole plan is to eliminate the stormwater that goes into our system. So I could tell you, being an owner's rep on a lot of big projects, that a lot of times there's retention and detention basins that are filtered twice. So a lot of the new development and the codes that are out there, and especially the energy code that was passed in 2016, from a sustainability standpoint, you pretty much check all the boxes on that. So you could assure going forward, the development now is very green and sustainable.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Did anyone else wish to comment before we go back to the vote on adjournment? Thank you, Mr. McCullough. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on the motion to adjourn?
Show 7.
I think we can show 7. All right, it is now 8:43. We will reconvene at, I'd like to get going by 8:50, but no later than 8:55. So thank you, everyone, and if you're here for the study meeting, stay with us. We'll be starting shortly. Thank you.